Hello everyone and welcome to today's Stocks and Crypto YouTube Charts video. I am No FOMO Charts. Today is Friday, August 14, 2026. It's about 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Welcome everyone. This is a swing trading and investing YouTube Charts channel and video. Next week with the upcoming earnings releases, we have earnings from Home Depot, Lowe's, Target, Walmart, and a few other big retail stores. Economic data, we have data from building permits, housing starts, pending home sales, FOMC meeting minutes, Fed manufacturing index, and unemployment claims as well. Recent news for July 2026, the CPI was flat in line with expectations, which was bad for that one day in the market sell off. PPI was lower than expected. That was good. One day rally. Today, retail sales were lower than expected, and that was bad. So, one day of sell off. Last week for August 2026, CoreWeave and Nebius reported better than expected earnings. SanDisk also announced bullish profit targets estimated until 2028 to 2030 fiscal year. And also, several banks recently upgraded SanDisk to buy again, which explains the rally. Stock indexes are at or near all-time high prices for 2026. There's a lot of information right now that's going on in this market. But I am taking a longer-term view here. This is SPY 2026 from this line to this line. We had the flash crash due to geopolitical Middle East military conflict up until April 1st, April 2nd. And then we had a nice rally until about June, July. Then we had the big AI chip sell-off. But we survived that, and we had some pretty decent earnings and data, and then we're up at almost, or we are at all-time highs for the S&P 500, essentially. So, SPY on a weekly chart, we did have this breakout above 755, hitting this all-time high of 779. I want to just make sure, talking to myself here, is that I want to make sure this does not turn into an evening star bearish pattern, because that could be bad for the market long term. But for me, I'm not as concerned unless some large institution happens to sell off. I'm starting to see very, very early signs of reversal. But the last time I saw this in summer of 2025, we actually kept rallying for about half a year, and then we pulled back. So it's not impossible to have a pullback when the stochastic RSI on a weekly is in the middle here. It's all about context. On the daily chart, it is starting to look a little bit overextended on the stochastic RSI. The MACD is starting to pull back a little bit. The squeeze has not fully squeezed to the downside. So probably what I anticipate is we're just going to have a small pullback back down to maybe 768 or 770. That's what I'm expecting. And we have this large large rectangle support and resistance level, previous level down here at 759. QQQ, NASDAQ ETF. We actually did break out this triangle. Remember, I drew this trend line. And so once we finally broke out above that early August, we had some nice gains on the index here, about 4%. So I do want to point out to people, this was a real breakout. And instead of retesting the lows here at 688, we just kept rallying actually, which is nice. But it's not as strong as anticipated. There was MACD momentum. We're stuck below the resistance of 733 right now and 722. And I just want to point out to people that these are just basic trend lines, support and resistance, that some investors are just ignoring all of this. They're looking more at macro. They're looking more at inflation for investment. looking at forward to the September FOMC meeting, what's going to happen there? We're majority past earnings. So if we kept downtrending, then I would start to say we're probably in a trouble here if we lost the 650 support, which did not happen. We actually reversed. Okay, I do see the small intraday bearish setup that's occurring on perhaps the 4-hour, where we might have a little bit of a pullback if we lose this support trend line below 722 zone. Just want to watch out for that. Dow Jones, slightly different story. Dow Jones, that evening star that occurred last week, starting to fade down. We're testing that support 536, 531 support to the downside. This weekly was almost a shooting star, not quite a doji. We have an inside bar starting this week, fading down into that consolidation. So I'm looking more for when we start pulling back like that, is there any support play? Because we got rejected down from that trend line. And I'm going to leave that there. Where's our next support? It really is that gap window fill. So if it's going to pull back, if we have bad data, perhaps 531 would be that level. IWM. So last week I was saying sometimes when we get these pullbacks, there are nice bounce opportunities, and that is true. Why was that true? Because we're in the uptrend still. We are not in a raging downtrend for IWM. If we lost the 50 and then we hit the 100, 200, then we're downtrending in the price. But we just tapped that 50 EMA and then 2 days of consolidation to the side into a rally. So now that we're stuck below this support level of 300, 301, it's not completely over, because if I look at the squeeze indicator, just for a general gauge of momentum, this is not absolute. But I'm not seeing the turnaround in this turning into this reduction in momentum, I'll call it. So until it's extreme, and this goes for all the indexes, right now we're kind of stuck in the middle of the linear regression on most indexes. Let me just flip back to show. We're in the middle for Dow Jones, rejecting, QQQ approaching the middle. SPY is very obvious, we're literally riding the middle. Middle meaning the middle of linear regression. We're not poking out extreme above Bollinger Bands on any of these 4 indexes. That's why it's just pretty much business as usual. Any good news will probably lead the market higher. Any extremely bad news or geopolitical bad news will probably pull us down. We passed 75% of S&P 500 companies reporting earnings. So there's a little bit less fear right now. The only thing is, if I just flip back to that SPY chart, even if I turn off all the indicators, it's basically all-time high. So when we get to all-time high range, just want to be careful, because that's possibly the start of maybe the end of something. Something meaning the rally, but it could take a while. The last 2 times this happened, past 2 years, it basically takes half a year for the market to top. So if we just broke out from this all-time high, maybe sometime in February 2027, next year, we might get a larger pullback next winter. So right now, it's all about earnings or news. So oil, on this weekly, we do have this little morning star, and I don't trade oil. I'm not a news-based day trader. So we're just bouncing off of that support above 115 and reaching that 130, 140, 150 level. It's interesting that it's coiling up into a triangle. So it's a large symmetrical triangle here for oil. See which way it's going to break. But the support downside is about 115. Watch out for that. It would be interesting if we actually broke out above 131. Natural gas, the only good thing I could say is after this downtrend is potential upside down head and shoulders. Bulls really need to save natural gas futures and natural gas ETF right here. If it's going to work, 990, right? Whenever we get to 9 or 10, there's some kind of usually reaction. We just lost at 1010, but I'll mark it here. So we have to See if we get this bullish momentum. If not, we're going to actually hit $9 for the first time in a long time. Gold. Okay, this is why I marked my levels. We can see, yes, there was that scary down cross, but given that the price was going sideways, this turned to an upside down head and shoulders play. 5% to the upside, we hit that first target. The second target would be 418. We could see we also broke out of this triangle. And again, when these setups happen in the middle of the week, I just let my analysis hold or just exist. I don't keep flipping my analysis every single day. That's why I don't make videos every single day. Is I do the charts, I mark my levels. If it breaks bullish, I might buy some. If there's a pattern that occurs, like on gold and now we're on silver, we had an upside down head and shoulders. So when it starts getting to this type of zone, when I see a lower low in the price and one of the MACDs or a squeeze is giving me a higher high, that's when I start getting interested or buying. And then when I see an upside down head and shoulders and a multiple little baby upside down head and shoulders, that's a definite buy for me. But I did not do this particular trade, even though it's a nice 10 to 20%, depending on 1x or 2x ETFs. Very nice play. But still, the technical analysis helps. And so it's good to keep an eye on the market. SMH. Here's a perfect example. SMH, semiconductor ETF. We had this ominous head and shoulders. But remember, a lot of these CEOs for like SK Hynix or SanDisk, they were hinting that the memory shortage is not going to end in 2026. It's going to continue at least for 1 or 2 years. That was the estimate. So for me, I was actually still bullish on SMH and semis. I just thought we were going to hit this 200 EMA on SMH, but SanDisk already hit. So did Samsung as well, which we'll look at in rapid fire after this. But all I'm saying is once it got to the bottom of this linear regression outside of that Bollinger Band, this was kind of that buy zone. Now, I thought it was going to go a little bit lower, but it's still technically just poked out just for 1 day. And July 30, 31, and August 3rd were the buy spot. Same thing for DRAM. Same thing for DRAM. DRAM was a little bit easier to forecast because it has limited lifespan in terms of it IPO'd on April 6th, the exact perfect day. And the price fell down right into the 618, right below it. So this was, and then we had a little bit of upside down in the shoulders or a trend line breakout. Also, if we use anchored VWAP, we can see we were below the second deviation. It's hard to see with the green line, this green line, and then we bounced up to the anchored VWAP of $58. So if I go to the SNDK and I turn on my EMA stack, which is 20 EMA, 50 EMA, 100 EMA, and 200 EMA, this is what I'm saying. SNDK SanDisk was showing us that we had this 200 EMA bounce. And I remember that day it tapped like 980. I still remember that in the post market, I was thinking, my goodness, 975, 979.80. SanDisk from the top. I was saying, remember on this video that we were 50% off on SanDisk, heading into earnings, which is actually profitable, good EPS revenue, and then the next clue was we're actually not dropping below 1200. Plus, we got a little bit of MACD momentum with the low stochastic RSI. So this one, in my opinion, I think it was a short squeeze because I think people were getting prepared to short this down right here below 1200, and then shorts got blown out. Unfortunately, it's just really sad. Right, and then we had a SanDisk Investor Day on Thursday, and then bottom to top, that was a 70% move, just absolutely phenomenal. SanDisk. Let's go to Samsung, which is it's in the Korean exchange. But the top of Samsung all the way to the bottom was also almost 50%. Let's get this very top wick to the bottom here. There's a 50%. Let's go to SK Hynix. And Samsung had some mixed earnings, but still survived there. Just because it's about 50, 60% off. SK Hynix, the real stock on the Korean exchange, from top to bottom, SK Hynix was 55% off. And it might be making a double bottom. Maybe, right? Or at least we're holding above this 1,335,000 KRW level. But let's go back to American stocks. Western Digital was just tracking their earnings were not the best, but still had a negative reaction because of guidance. But we had that survival here. Seagate STX as well did a little bit better. And we could see we had that higher low reversal. And these are like 20% moves. It's great. So memory is not completely useless in trading or investing. It's actually very useful for enterprise and for consumers. I was just happy to see as a consumer that we had some kind of like flash sale on Samsung memory products. I think I saw on Amazon. I think it was late July, early August, where the prices actually came down a little bit just for a week and then it went back up. So I was happy to see that. But AI data centers, they're still in progress, ongoing. NVDA as well hit its 200 EMA. This is all news now. It's 2 weeks ago. Absolutely beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. That's why just being patient. The last time this happened was March 2026, and NVIDIA is not the most popular trade anymore, reporting their earnings in about 12 days from now, August 26. Very important to keep track of this. Price. AMD had pretty decent earnings. There's a little problem with the, like I was saying last week, the Q1 27 profitability and guidance. But at the same time, it's just tracking that SanDisk. AMD chart a little bit choppy here. Put a trend line on the top. We can see it's closer to resistance than where it was on the bottom side. Let's look at Intel. I like Intel chart, even though the earnings is good. I just like that it is downtrending. This is more my style, into an upside down head and shoulders. So if we hold above $100 Intel, maybe we can just backtest that for a little bit and everyone will notice that, wait a second, this is actually good. And then if they have good news, we can rally to the upside. But Intel already had a 400% run, so maybe it's a little bit tired right now. We can see that the MACD and the TTM squeeze is also in a little bit of bullish mode. Same with AMD. AMD could have a breakout. I'm just rewinding here because I need to check these. NVIDIA, see, it's not exactly the same. Well, let's also look at Micron stock. Micron as well, we can see it takes a long time, but these daily squeeze is actually just starting. So this reversal, even from Micron, was also 40% off, hit 100 EMA. And we're seeing potential upside down head and shoulders, a little dirty, but it's there. 25% to the upside. Didn't quite hit that yet. The 25% move will take us to about the 1100 range with the earnings in late September. So this one might be a little bit safer play. It's 35% above its bottom, so it's not safe in that aspect. But in terms of, is there going to be momentum? We just barely had a little green DMI cross. And so this is something that at least swing traders, we look for this. The TTM squeeze. If I'm seeing it on Micron, for now it's just Micron, but I would say DRAM is in there. There's like an invisible one, but DRAM as well. So memory is still in play. Let's go to SpaceX. Got Tesla for a second. Tesla, the death cross, but they announced today that they might be doing some kind of like flying car test. If that works, that's going to be very interesting. That's going to be very interesting. Because we're living in a world where there's robot taxis and there's still some friction. I'm seeing humans getting impatient with robot taxis. We're having robots in real life, but not everybody has their own personal robot, like assistant. We have AI chatbots. We're going to get AI agents, and the future is robots. The future is AI in the car. The future is the talking AI car in the future. But we're not there yet. So, yes, Tesla with the death cross, unfortunately, and their earnings, the EPS was lower than expected. So, I think the best case scenario here, you can rally into like 365 or even 383, but there is technical momentum here off this low. Just need to have less bad news come out. If bad news comes out, it could just reject like this because it's already vulnerable in this downtrend. So we could see lower low, lower high in the price, lower low. If it bounces to like lower high 362, and if something bad happens, then we can see it do that. So nobody really wants to see that as a trader. Let's go to SpaceX. SpaceX, believe it or not, my video last week was the exact bottom of SpaceX. So sometimes when I make videos, ideally I would make a live stream every single day, but I think it's just too much for me and other people, although I'm willing to try it someday. Because sometimes setups happen in the middle of the week. They're not happening on Friday. They're not happening on Sunday. It happens on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So this to me was a very potential obvious play because even though the earnings was maybe 25% futurist or 25% theoretical, they had better than expected earnings, EPS, and revenue, meaning they narrowed the gap, so to speak. They had less losses in EPS and revenue, and then their 1, 2, 5, 10-year roadmap plan. And AI data centers on the Earth, on the moon, because we're going to run out of energy on the Earth. Yes, I totally understand that from a basic perspective because environmental concerns. Even in real life, everyone's like, not everyone, but there's always like a group of 10 or 20 people protesting AI data centers for environmental impact, energy requirements, water requirements, land, real estate, noise. The coil whine basically is so loud in those videos. So here's additional information about SpaceX. If I put an anchored VWAP from the start, and I marked that double bottom here in the blue like I did last time. And I have a Fibonacci from bottom to top. This anchored VWAP, the price was 150, 149. We tapped that. We went from a double bottom, a little dirty double bottom, I would say. And then we had this nice rally straight up into anchored VWAP. This is also very similar to DRAM. Can we see the correlation here? We're on DRAM. Except DRAM was not a double bottom. It was a 618 support level. It's a higher low or upside down in the shoulders, higher low, right into the anchored VWAP. So VWAP, anchored VWAP, and Fibonacci, in my opinion, still works in this market. That's why you see me do it every single time. Because if I don't do it, it makes no sense or less sense. Or somebody could just say, all right, well, the price just went up straight into this IPO price. So somebody could do that too, just to support level of having 135 or 150 in their mind, which we hit 135 and then we hit 150. So perfect. Whoever bought their IPO, maybe somebody might have just escaped out of there, sold some. So where are we going next for SpaceX? So this is good. At least we're out of this downtrend. Thank goodness. Now, the only thing that remains is, can we sustain and maintain this uptrend momentum? And it's okay temporarily, for technical chart reasons, for the price to come down all the way to 110. Hopefully it doesn't do that. All the way to 120 and then make a higher low in the price. If we have good news, good events, maybe next earnings, higher high, and then we can see how we're going to get out of here. Like this. It would be unfortunate if this is some dead cat bounce and this is actually fake, and then we have this is the real crash to $60, $50. That would be sad to see. But those are the two cases, bull case or bear case. Which one's it going to be? And it's all about the data and events. Because I'm not just saying this about SpaceX, it's because I'm really interested in SpaceX, but for all companies, doesn't matter who it is, SanDisk, SpaceX, Apple, Google, investors, or at least basic retail, we're concerned about EPS, we're concerned about revenue, we're concerned about general forecast and guidance, and significant events, news, and development, maybe a little bit about the capital allocation, debt financing, etc. From a purely retail standpoint, it's just about products and services, basically. And getting a sense of, is this company making money or is this the company of the future? I believe SpaceX and Tesla is the future, but it's so early and people can't see it with their eyes. But I saw their news. They're about to change that now. So someday I might buy Starlink. So I don't have it right now, but someday I might buy Starlink. Someday, if we have more problems, like maybe even solar, right? I have people around me that they have Starlink, they have solar, they have Tesla, they have like 3 or 4 of those. They have like Tesla charging thing at their house. I've seen it, I've used them, and they're good products, right? Or I'm always curious about, okay, is there going to be like another Tesla super charging station near my place that's not going to be super overcrowded? I'm interested in knowing that about the charging construction and the maps. Okay, let's switch the subject right now. So you can see that stocks, there's a lot more action and events that's going on in stocks because of AI semiconductors. For crypto, it's a different story. Altcoins have been flash pumping, but I focus on the majors as my guide. Let's look at total. Crypto market cap right now, you can see we have lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low zone with this potential rounding rejection. We're in this death cross still. I believe that Bitcoin probably has more flash crash potential. I would be more interested in Bitcoin if we had established a very clear higher high to 70,000, pull back to 65,000. If we did this to 80,000, then I say, oh wait, we're in bull market mode now. The early stages, not happening yet. Unfortunately, not happening yet. So what am I waiting for? This weekly chart, if we're getting rejected below 66,000, I believe we're probably going down to 50,000 just based on Fibonacci. There's that word again. So what I like to do is I like to actually Fibonacci for my support and resistance to the most recent lowest low, meaning what was the most recent market bottom to the most recent market top, which was bottom 2022 up to top of 2025. 2025, that was last year. So we can see we're downtrending here. Now, the other secret to this longer term strategy is the anchored VWAP as well. We are right. Isn't this astonishing to see? We're right. We were trying to write it. So it's not actually game over. It's not actually game over. It's downtrending. Because remember, if we just rewind, we look at SpaceX, we look at SanDisk. So I'm going to treat this very similarly. We're probably not going to hit a Bitcoin bottom until we're somewhere down here in this range. Because if I use Fibonacci combined with anchored VWAP, those are the lower levels of value. The second deviation, this green line, right? Actually, this is the first deviation, excuse me. But at least hitting the first deviation. The second deviation is extreme, right? The third deviation is ridiculous for Bitcoin. It doesn't even make sense. So this first one is probably the correct zone. Anywhere between 40,000 to 30,000 Bitcoin is probably going to be a buy to me. If we hit 20,000, 10,000, that's 100% auto buy. I'm just going to buy a whole bunch of cryptos that I think is going to survive and go back up. But the first level to test is this 618.55,000. Now it's good that we're at the anchored VWAP at 62,000. And again, that weekly momentum is building. But I believe it looks like we're going to have another flash dump. That's what the charts is looking at to me. And unfortunately, it could just be a flash dump of like 10%, and then we're straight into the 56,000, and I bet there's a whole bunch of buy orders down here. So right now, we need to stay above 58,000 support and resistance 66,000. Why am I over talking about this? Because over explaining it is because it's very important for me to be tight with my capital. This year has been a little bit too volatile in both crypto and stocks. So I need to just be very patient to wait for some great opportunities. Let's do a very similar aspect to Ethereum. Now, Ethereum is slightly different because we can see the lowest low of June 2022 was 975. Highest high, wow, 4,871. But we're already closer to the 2025 February crash low, which is good. Let's put an anchored VWAP bottom here on Ethereum. So we're below anchored VWAP. That's good. I'm starting to see very early signs of squeeze momentum. Very, very early signs. It's not even ready yet. Still in that downtrend on the daily, but I like how it's very coiled here. Now it could break to the downside or break to the upside. So if it breaks below 1857, probably targeting 1563 or flash crash down to 1100. We can see that first deviation line, this green line. So if it ever pierces down to 1200, that's going to be an auto buy for me. We're already below the 618. Let's go to XRP USD. This is such a sad chart to see. This is not enough information. Let's go to like a Binance XRP. There we go. So we get a lot more information here. XRP has been just so quiet. Very quiet. Same analysis. Standardize it. I liked how we're eating the 786. We're right at VWAP. Isn't this incredible? So this could be a potential reversal zone for XRP if the Clarity Act actually ever gets passed. Even though it's not the most beneficial, it just helps with regulatory clarity. But we'll see here, dollar is that anchored VWAP. If it crashes, next place I want to buy is maybe 65 cents, or I'm going to call it death crash of like 20 cents for an altcoin. But I do like, finally, we retraced. You can see here, we went all the way to the top of the third deviation, which is my purple line. Second deviation is yellow. First deviation, green. Anchor VWAP, blue. This is what this means. Hard to see. But when we get this third deviation out of bounds, it was way out of Bollinger Band 2. That's just to auto sell. Just take the profit, get out of there. Now, when we're near this VWAP, I'm interested. When we're down here, I'm interested. That's why. This might not be the perfect time to buy them. Solana USD, this is an easier chart. Same deal. Fibonacci bottom to top. Anchor VWAP. Anchor VWAP, by the way, is free because it's volume based from TradingView tool. Just get into the habit of just apply it, and sometimes it either bounces off it or it doesn't. You can see when we hit that second deviation, and this anchored VWAP was very predictable. Somebody could have applied it all the way back 4 years ago, and it still works today as basic support and resistance combined with Fibonacci. We lost at 618, 786 bounce above $59. So it looks like we're going to fall down to about $36, $40. I might want to buy there. Now, there's some coins that have been pumping, like Pump Fund itself. Pump USDT had a phenomenal rally. I want to try to demystify this for people. Let's see. Why did Pump rally? Okay. There might have been fundamental reasons, but I see a clear upside down head and shoulders right here into the end of July. And that was 45%. This ended up going almost 80%. We also had, if we put super trend, green super trend, green DMI. Simple. This is one filter that I'm trying to use more often, is that when we're really oversold in a downtrend and then you finally get the green DMI, it's hard to see, but green DMI, and the price is above the super trend, I have to get into a habit personally of stop looking at MACDs, TTM squeeze, don't even look at the RSI, don't even look at stochastic RSI. It's just I'm playing green, green, and then buy. So I missed this trade, but that's okay. I'm not trading crypto. There is plenty more opportunities, but I'm just saying that's one strategy that personally I'm trying to do better at in catching bottom moves. It also works if we go on like SanDisk, for example. If I rewind to like April 26, we can see it does help right here. Let's just say the very early part, like, let's say I missed it for a week and I'm still here. April 13, we can see super trend cross, the price is green. This only works on a daily chart, by the way. Daily chart, green, and then DMI up cross green. RSI doesn't matter because it's high. This doesn't matter. Squeeze doesn't matter. MACD doesn't matter. Stochastic RSI doesn't matter. It's just we're starting to uptrend. That's all that matters. It's risky. It does not always work, but it helps me. It can, if we're going to have a big mega trend, I noticed that that's basically the start of it, combined with the EMA, short-term EMA upcross, right? If I combine like those two or three, then it's possible to get the big rally. The opposite's also partially true when we have a red, this is really hard to see now, a red super trend with a red DMI cross. And we can see all the oscillators are like all down, looking like there's going to be a reversal. But if it's a real downtrend, the super trend should be red for a while until it's not. So you get this big reversal. So you can see, even for me, I'm trying to refine my combination strategies of, I don't always need a MACD or TTM squeeze or even a RSI stochastic. Sometimes very simple as EMA line cross, because this is also confirming that trend. And if the trend is strong enough, then it's real and it lasts for like 3 or 4 months. So even I am trying to perfect that strategy right now. So SNDK, it takes time. But SNDK, right, broke out here. We can see a little bit of that green. Starting again, a little bit of this green with the much bigger MACD. So I'm thinking, is this the real one? Are we going back to all-time highs in like 6 months from now? Maybe. And remember, the super trend is a 2 ATR stop loss trailing indicator, basically, calculation. So right now, if the ATR is 167 for 1 ATR, it basically means 340 for 2 ATR. And we can see that's right around where that green line is, right here. So 20% stop loss, which means I probably have to size down a lot. If I'm going for a 20% stop loss to a 40% or a 30% move, the size down probably like times 5. But if this is real, then that target might actually come true. But I have to give it a lot of wiggle room, meaning high, low, and be willing to even get stopped out on that trade. So you try to catch that. Okay, thank you everyone. This was a very long video, but just I like to be thorough in my charts, because if I just do really fast 30-second charts, I could do it, but sometimes I miss chart pattern. So for me personally, it's part of my process to just spend 30 minutes to an hour per day and just try to drill down into the details, and then the setup eventually comes to me, like SpaceX did last week, like SanDisk did last week with the measure and move of -50%, SpaceX double bottom. So right now I'm looking at chips. I'm seeing, okay, there might be a potential reversal to the upside in chips after the rally. I mean, excuse me, after the sell-off, we might rally. It might not be such a large magnitude move, but we're getting these nice bounces that, if it survives, could be the start of a new trend. Okay, thank you everybody for watching. If you like this video, go and click like, subscribe, share this video with your friends. Hope you have a nice week, and I'll see you in the next video.